Look, I've been an advocate for universal basic income basically since the first day that I heard about it, which admittedly, I do not remember when that was. Just recently, I advocated for it again as the potential savior from the massive and horrific economic impacts of the coronavirus crisis, of which we have seen nothing yet. But aside from spreading awareness for the idea, there wasn't really all that much I could do. I mean, it's nice if a few more people know about something, but how is that really going to get politics involved? Well, look no further, because today a European citizens' initiative has begun collecting signatures aimed at creating a EU-wide UBI. There's some national governments in Europe that have considered a UBI. There's definitely been a lot of regional ones that have been trying to even implement some of those pilot projects, but a deployment on this scale would be unprecedented. And there is now a big-time petition that is rolled around for exactly this effort. And if it gets 1 million signatures, the European Commission, which is the de facto most powerful body in the European Union, will legally have to take a good look at it. So first thing you do right now, if you are a citizen of any EU country, is you stop this video, go to the description or the pinned comment, go to the Citizens Initiative website, and go sign that petition. This is a fantastic chance to achieve a UBI backed by a massive and very powerful government organization. And the benefits would be out of this world. And in case you've forgotten them, here's just a small selection of benefits that occur, as has been found out by the many pilot programs, studies, and meta-analyses of UBI projects. All of this information comes from basically a huge compilation of sources and materials from the UBI subreddit. They have like a wiki thing, and also by work done by Scott Santens, big UBI advocate. Everyone should follow him on Twitter. But if you really want to get into the science behind it, do check those out. First of all, UBI just destroys the unemployment trap. I am a big proponent of welfare, but there is one problem with it, and that is if you receive welfare, which I think you can in pretty much all European countries, specifically for being unemployed, it kind of disincentivizes you from seeking work under the current economic paradigm. After all, with how low wages have become in the past few years and decades, sometimes if you go to work, you won't actually make more money or even the same amount of money as you would if you stayed on welfare. So you would get the same or less amount of money, but instead of not having to work, you would have to work for it. You see the problem here. But your UBI you get to keep, so any money that you make is just extra money that you make. Related to that, it also pretty much eliminates welfare fraud, which to be fair isn't really as big a problem as many people would lead you to believe. Just to make this clear, I don't think UBI should replace the welfare state, although I do think it can replace some elements of the welfare state. There is a lot of aspects of the welfare state which are absolutely essential for a lot of special cases, special categories of people that have to deal with special life circumstances. But those parts that can be gotten rid of and simplified will come with a huge lowering in the cost of the bureaucratic administration of welfare. And in conjunction with the welfare state, UBI does a lot to secure people's basic standard of living. Something that is a problem with welfare is that very often the underlying bureaucratic processes are very time-consuming and very complicated, which especially for people with low education or people who have a job and still need to collect welfare, because there are a lot of people who have a job and still need to collect welfare, there's a lot that goes missing by the wayside. It is simply not reasonably possible to send the aid that you want to send to the people that you want to send it to. As a result, a lot of people live in poverty simply because they do not have access to the welfare that they should get. With UBI, this ceases to be a problem, and everybody gets access to the same minimum standard of living that should be every human being's right. It also would do a lot of work in removing the stigma of welfare, because here's something ironic that happens to people who look for jobs, which is also a reason why a lot of individuals do not seek out welfare even if they need it and are entitled to it, because a future employer might look on your record and go, oh, this person at some point collected welfare. This must mean that they are lazy. Therefore, I will not employ them in my company, forcing them to continue not having a job and forcing them back onto welfare. This is not good for anyone involved, and it really isn't good for the economy either. So you can see how this is a self-reinforcing cycle of despair. In the same vein, UBI increases the bargaining power of workers, which both the right wing and the left wing should be happy about, albeit for different reasons. Picture this scenario, right? You are poor. Not a difficult scenario to imagine for a lot of us, and you really want a job because you really want to make some money so you can pay rent at the end of the month and you can buy food so you don't die. So a potential employer offers you a very poorly paid job with horrific hours and terrible working conditions just because you don't really have an alternative. Try to get a different job. It's the same thing with different colors. All the power in this situation is with the employer, because you either take this terrible job that no person in a free market as imagined by theorists of the free market would take, because if you don't, you're just fucked. If instead you and everyone else has the option to say no, employers will be forced to improve wages and working conditions. Which, by the way, these kinds of situations also often happen when you already have a job, where your employer will slowly spring more and more horrific shit on you because they know that you can't quit the job that you are trapped in. With UBI giving you the option of saying no, I mean, it's a very simple equation, really. If there's an activity that you can decide not to engage in, you have a lot more agency and power over that activity than you would otherwise. Not to mention, this kind of agency also makes you less financially dependent upon others, which makes it a lot easier to leave abusive relationships. Something else that people do when they are really desperate for money is become criminals. Poverty is, in fact, the main predictor for people engaging in crime. This is kind of a no-brainer, but we also know this empirically. Especially in areas severely affected by intergenerational poverty, crime can be the only option that you have, not just of making it out of there, but of having any kind of employment that will pay you enough money so you can buy food and groceries for your kids. UBI decreases crime rates by up to 42%. That's almost half. And it makes sense. You've just taken away the biggest incentive to do crime. So obviously there's gonna be a lot less crime. On the flip side of that coin, drug abuse, both legal and illegal, decreases. After all, much of the drug abuse that happens because people are trying to escape the desperation of their own reality. And so if you alleviate that desperation, you also take away the reasons for drug abuse. Which is just one aspect of the huge package deal of mental health that is UBI. This too is pretty simple. If you live in a constant state of existential fear, it is going to negatively impact your mental health. And if you take away the source of that existential fear, the constant ravaging effect that beast has on people's mental health immediately ceases. UBI has been shown to decrease the severity of all kinds of psychological disorders, and also because fear is very effective at making you be less good at the thinking, it makes you better at thinking too. It literally increases mental ability. It makes people smarter to have UBI. Additionally, it frees up avenues of attaining a higher degree of education, which more educated workers are better for everyone in the economy. Not only that, but it literally makes people nicer. because now they have the breathing room to care. More money is given to charity and more people volunteer their time and expertise for non-profit charitable work. That is in addition to, I can't stress this enough, people literally being nicer to each other on an interpersonal level. It also has a positive effect on physical health. It lowers hospitalization rates by 8.5% and also tends to extend maternity leaves and make for healthier children and healthier people in general, because people now have the resources, the ability, and the willingness to consume more healthy food, which is actually something that verifiably happens. Home ownership also increases under UBI, which is coupled with an ability and also the act of paying back debt that people owe or creating savings. So people with UBI, in addition to the UBI itself, are further better shielded from the negative impacts of economic crises. The increase in mental and physical health, as well as bargaining power for workers, makes them happier and more productive, especially given that a lot of them will actually now have the ability to get into jobs that they enjoy. And people who work in jobs that nobody enjoys will have to be properly compensated for doing that work. Self-employment and small businesses get a massive boost with UBI, so you can own your own means of production. Not to mention that money given to the lower class has a disproportionate impact on the economy. You have to remember that money is ultimately a transactional tool that motivates people to exchange goods and services. UBI would have the biggest impact on the lower classes because when the lower classes get money, they actually have a very strong incentive to spend it in order to just, live. You get UBI, you go buy bread, the, supermarket buys the bread from the bread manufacturer buys machines to make more bread. I think those would be ovens at that point. They buy parts with that money, they pay metal workers and specialists, knowledge experts, laborers are being compensated in all of these steps. Meanwhile, you give $1 to a rich person, they'll probably just put it away and save it, where it does basically nothing. Even if it is invested, there is a good to fair chance that it will detract from the economy. All benefit parts of the economy that are pointless and bad. It matters very little where you stand on the political spectrum. UBI is good. If you are a free market libertarian, it brings the ground truth closer to the theory of how a free market should optimally work, creating better outcomes. If you are a leftist, like myself, this directly improves the material conditions of the working class and increases the bargaining power of laborers. If you're worried about automation taking jobs away, UBI will do a huge part in making sure that people don't starve as a result. If you're an environmentalist, UBI increases people's willingness to invest in environmentalist causes and also purchase the very often more expensive greener products that are better for the environment. If you're a feminist, this increases financial independence of women everywhere from men everywhere. If you're a conservative Christian, UBI stabilizes nuclear families that want to be nuclear families. Countless economists from all over the political spectrum advocate for universal basic income, including no less than 8 Nobel Prize-winning economists. So what are you waiting for? Sign the petition. Even if it fails, it will be a huge step in making more people aware of UBI and, more importantly, making lawmakers aware that there is a concerted and growing public interest in this kind of project. This is how you directly lobby on your own behalf to policymakers. Demonstrating the growing popular and political demand for something like a UBI is a massive catalyst in social, cultural, and systemic change. And if you are a citizen of any EU country, there is something big you can do right now. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, buying some of my merchandise or my short story collection. And in that spirit, why are you still here? Go sign the petition and recommend it to your friends and family. And in that spirit, see you around, cunts.